Watch right now in the Front News Project. Fire on North Koreans. Exclusive footage. Tankers of the 47th Brigade destroy Kim Jong-un soldiers. American ABRAMS tanks in Kursk. You have to see this. Explosions and fires on the territory of the Russian Federation. Military targets are burning, and this is just the beginning. Fiery, hot and blazing footage from the front line. Watch right now.
The military year 2024
At
is
this
coming
time,
to
the
an end.
heroic resistance of the Ukrainian armed forces and the entire Ukrainian people in their fight for freedom continues. Greetings. This is Front News. I'm Vladimir Timoshenko. In the next 30 minutes, you will get the truth about the war, which our journalists obtained from the hottest battle zones. So are you ready? Then let's begin. Let's start right away with exclusive material. How soldiers of the armed forces of Ukraine, particularly the tank crews of the 47th Brigade, destroy North Korean troops and their military equipment on Kursk. No matter what tales the Kremlin tells, the DPRK has lost over 3,000 soldiers killed and wounded in the Russo-Ukrainian war. President Zelensky. Well, right now you will see everything for yourself in a fiery report. ATSN correspondent Andrei Tsaplienko. It is likely that the tank crew of the 47th Brigade was the first Ukrainian unit to engage in combat with North Korean soldiers in Kursk.
It seemed that there was something on the
They said that suspicious troops, not ours, were spotted there near Baga.
What do you mean?
Koreans.
North Koreans?
Yes, they said it was Koreans because we went out, did our job, returned. And we were told the next day. And even in the news on Russian websites, information appeared that the North Koreans were the first to be eliminated.
Decent supervision in the parks has been eliminated.
At the moment, South Korea's intelligence estimates that North Korean losses in the Kursk region are at least 100 dead. Since November, almost all our units in Kursk have already engaged in combat with large groups of military personnel of Asian appearance who are sent into attack without armored vehicles.
This is Qing Yangzhou.
Somewhere around the end of October, a radiogram came to the unit. Be careful, these, let's say, our guests will be engaging in battle.
The guests are North Koreans. The commander of one of the landing units of the 95th Brigade noticed a significant change in the enemy's tactics and is waiting for his paratroopers to capture a prisoner for final confirmation.
Clinical edge, cell clinical edge. I'm there.
North Korea or non-North Korea, we do not have 100% information. Just scattered across the field, across the front, are 50 sheets of the enemy.
Enemy road. The Russians advance.
Russians are crossing in small groups of 3, 4 or 5 people, but here they were going in groups of 15 or 20 people at the same time, in a line.
What do you mean by in a row?
Well, just like that, they went in formation, yes, across the field, one after another in single file.
Such groups advance in waves to assault Ukrainian positions from several directions simultaneously.
Probably more than 300 were coming at us simultaneously from the left and right flanks.
With such intensity of the assault, each tank daily depletes the enemy's full ammunition load.
23 shells a day.
The new enemy was liked by Ukrainian FPV drone operators.
Just to shoot like at a shooting range. That has never happened before.
And now it was like
Sort of, yes.
Koreans do not know what to do when a drone approaches, so they often take down several assault troops at once. They hide in shelters, which the drones have already mapped it out, and within a few minutes ammunition arrives there, and then FPVs search for concussed Kim soldiers among the trees. This happens in all directions, and so far this suicidal tactic of the North Koreans has returned only one village in the Kursk region to Putin.
It's hard, it's scary, because someone still reaches our positions.
Northern Koreans, risking themselves under attacks, pull their dead from the battlefield, likely to report the exact number of losses. Following the assault group, there is usually a team that turns the bodies face down so that the Ukrainian drones do not. It was impossible to identify them and the Koreans. It is possible that for the same reason Russians distort their faces with flamethrowers, which means either Kim or Putin. Someone from these two is still afraid of direct evidence of North Korea's participation especially in the war against Ukraine. We need prisoners.
Well, of course, to verify that these are some North Koreans, at least for there to be some North Korean documents, we'll take them. The main task is to inflict maximum losses on the enemy. Whether it's North Korea or it's a Russian, it doesn't matter.
However, not everything is bad for the Koreans. It is noticeable that Kim Jong-il's units have better physical training than Russia.
Shining and Ray shoot.
They are trained to shoot excellently and they shoot just as excellently. At an altitude of 60 to 80 meters, they managed to shoot us down when we flew through their column at speed. That is, he did not run away, he saw the drone approaching him and kept shooting at it to the very end.
If 11,000 such soldiers adapt to drone warfare, then then they will pose a serious threat, but that takes time and Putin doesn't have time. Ukrainians need to be pushed out of Kursk before Trump's inauguration to relieve Kyiv. Putin bought these disposable soldiers to throw them by the thousands at Ukrainian positions. This means that for our guys beyond the northern border, there will soon be a lot of hard work.
Now, an analysis of the operational situation on the much-suffering Pokrovsky direction of the front. The enemy continues its military terror. In the Pokrovsky direction, in the areas of Vozvijenka and Mirolyuba, the enemy meanwhile made 26 attempts to push back our defenders. 21 attacks were already repelled by our defenders. But you know, traditionally during the week there were fires and explosions on the territory of the Russian Federation itself. Hits on military targets in the Russian Federation. A common occurrence, isn't it? Oriel region, a direct hit on the oil depot. Kazan, the gunpowder factory is destroyed. Something similar happened, by the way, in the Rostov region. All the details right now in the report by TSN journalist Oksana Rodionova.
This week, not only were war criminals eliminated, but military infrastructure in Russia was also destroyed. With a combined strike, we attacked the Kamensky plant, 150 kilometers from the front line in the Rostov region. The target is extremely important. Here, the Russians produce fuel for the hurricanes of Iskander and Yars missiles, on the basis of which Putin makes his filbert. And this is not the only successful attack in the Rostov region. The Novoshakhtinsk oil refinery caught fire after an attack by drones and rockets of Ukrainian production. Struck the primary processing unit. It was burning significantly. This refinery was the only operating refinery in the Rostov region. On the night of Sunday, our drones attacked the Oriol region. There was a hit on the oil depot.
I know. Dear Mom, Grandpa, let's go.
This projectile in the Kursk region hit the officers' dormitory and beyond.
Amen.
The Russians reported 50 strikes on the city. The detonation of the ammunition lasted a long time. The city is without electricity and heat.
Subtitles by Dima Torzov.
Drones also attacked Kazan. There is a gunpowder plant critical for the Russian military-industrial complex. Unfortunately, the Russian electronic warfare slightly diverted the drone from its course. Six surrendered over the weekend in occupied Donetsk. The FSB building is destroyed. This week in Russia, the partisan movement was activated again. Military recruitment offices and police cars were set on fire in various cities and regions. And in Novosibirsk, partisans burned army fuel tankers right on the territory of a military unit. Detonations occurred in the vicinity of Murmansk, 1,900 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, not far from the airfield where enemy IK-52E bombers are based. At an airfield in the Moscow region, an Antonov An-72 military transport aircraft worth $4.5 million exploded. Why the plane exploded and whether Ukrainian special services were involved, intelligence does not say. But they started their message with the words "boom near Moscow." Adiaso,
Well, now for the analysis of the operational situation on the Kurakov direction of the front, the enemy is assuring here as well. On the Kurakovo direction, there are 17 clashes in the areas of Petropavlivka, Slavianka, and Kurakovo. 11 enemy assaults have already been repelled by our defenders. Also, during the week, there were more brutal missile and drone attacks on peaceful Ukrainian cities. How are people in Kryvyi Rih trying to carry on after the attack that claimed the life of a man and destroyed a 4-story building the day before? 17 people were injured, among them 2 teenage girls. The search operation was completed only around 4 in the morning, and the entire day was spent clearing the debris. Utility workers removed dozens of truckloads of trash which this house had turned into. Correspondent KTSN Anastasia Neverna will tell more.
The ruins being cleared since early morning by excavators, everything that remains of the entrance of the 4-story building. Having survived the rocket attack, a small cabinet clings to the wall with its last strength. From afar in the morning light, its color symbolically resembles the color of the Ukrainian flag. Yulia came to the ruins that were her home just yesterday. She is searching for anything that survived. The girl's apartment is on the ground floor. She says that if she had been there during the attack, she probably wouldn't have survived.
By pure chance, a friend called. She asked me to come and groom the dogs before New Year's Eve. My apartment is gone. That's exactly when she arrived. I want to find the icon because my dad believes it saved us.
This apartment, the girl says, was not just a home for her, but also a chance in case of her illness worsening.
I have severe kidney failure. It's insurance. If the kidneys fail, there will be some money for rehabilitation.
Around 4 p.m. the occupiers hit the house with ballistic missiles. The structure collapsed and buried people who were preparing for Christmas at that time. The impact was captured by surveillance cameras. They show how the asphalt scatters from the impact and the shards of glass and concrete.
Attacks on passersby.
Rescuers manually cleared the debris and nursery. And concerned individuals helped with their bare hands. Several people were rescued and handed over to medics.
But here?
17 residents were injured. A 43-year-old man who was pulled out alive from under the debris died in the ambulance. Among the injured are 2 girls aged 14 and 16. 5 patients in the hospital have blast injuries.
3 are in critical condition, 2 of whom are in intensive care, and another 2 are stable.
After a sleepless night, rescuers continue to work at the arrival site. They are helping people reach the surviving apartments to collect their belongings.
The apartment is damaged, but more so the part that
Subtitles
faces
created by
that side. And the entire section, it's damaged. There's no way to go up there at all.
The surrounding houses, stores and cafes were damaged. More than 24 cars were smashed to pieces. The destroyed building has been completely evacuated because currently there is no electricity, water or gas. At least several dozen people were left without housing on New Year's Day. When they will be allowed to return to at least the intact apartments will be known after a full inspection.
Well, now let's return to the course direction of the front. Another loud and hefty slap personally to Putin and all his military commanders. American Abrams tanks scorched the ground under the feet of the so-called Second Army of the world. In tandem with Bradley IFVs, the Abrams tanks have been effectively since October. Hold back the Russian advance on the already legendary town of Sud. All the details of the successful operation of ABRAMS on the Kursk front in an exclusive report by TSN military correspondent Andriy Tsaplienko.
ABRAMS gained speed on the snowy Kursk field, covering the frozen pieces of Russian land with its tracks. What seemed unreal at the beginning of the war is now just one of the episodes on the 1,200-kilometer front lines.
Engine start.
Subtitles created by Dima.
These tank crew members from the 47th Brigade have just returned from one combat mission and are preparing their ABRAMS for another.
Tank operators are not 100% sure.
The tankers are not 100% sure if among those enemy units they destroyed there were North Koreans, because from a tank the enemy's face is not visible. But the fact that the legendary ABRAMS are driving on the so-called sovereign territory of the Russian Federation can only be seen as a slap in the face personally to Putin. They engaged the enemy from a distance of several kilometers, calling their equipment a sniper rifle on tracks.
Hyper's landmark.
Sniper rifle. It works perfectly up to 4 kilometers. We have 4 types of ammunition: armor piercing, cumulative, buckshot and high explosive. And for each type there are specific adjustments in the ballistic calculator.
Oh, properly chosen ammunition plus
The breeder,
skill.
and the first shell lands on the target.
This was Gulab.
It was an infantry fighting vehicle. We were working at a distance of 2 kilometers, 300 meters. The vehicle was moving under the tree line. I saw it both visually in the main sight and confirmed it in the thermal sight. We hit it on the first try. There were no problems with the first shell.
In a duet with Bradley IFVs and Abrams tanks since October.
Fictitiousness holds back the Russian offensive for a
The
year.
city of Sudzha, the largest populated area
burning
of that part of Russian territory currently controlled by Ukraine,
We went out.
We left to assault 2 tanks, 2 Bradleys.
this.
We went, assaulted,
the
returned.
first losses of ABRAMS in the Pokrovsk direction, according to the fighters, occurred due to the unknown fact that the Americans dismantled elements of secret depleted uranium armor from the vehicles.
They didn't specify if it would be uranium or not. We just
Subtitles by
assumed there
Dima
would
Tozak.
be some kind of armor, but then it turned out to be different. We simply weren't informed that it wasn't there. If we had been told about it earlier, we would have installed 4x20 earlier and saved both the vehicles and personnel.
The bloody experience of Pokrovsk forced us to learn the strengths and weaknesses of the ABRAMS.
Tanks, as they
The tanks, as they say, have undergone certain modernization. In addition to the standard American protection elements, they also have the so-called Contact 1 protection installed on the armor, and it is quite effective. The frontal part is also reinforced. A powerful engine of 1,500 horsepower makes the Abrams, despite its large mass, very maneuverable and therefore an effective weapon for breaking through enemy defenses. In my opinion, this machine has only one problem. We have very few of them. For victory, for effective operation, for effective deterrence of the enemy, we need at least 10 times more of such machines. According to official data, Ukraine received only 31 ABRAMS of the first modification. There are about 6,000 such vehicles in American warehouses.
They no longer use this first model, not even for training exercises.
Everything in the tank is designed to maximize the crew's chances of survival. Thus, in Korchinizh, Russian FPV drones fly into a Ukrainian ABRAMS, several strikes on one vehicle. The crew survived. In a T-64 or T-72, after such a hit, there wouldn't even be genetic material left for identification, as they say.
Remove.
The commander of this crew was injured at Kerchina, but not in the tank. His vehicle was damaged. The tank crew evacuated and came under fire from Russian infantry.
The bullet passed.
The bullet went straight through the throat. The shoulder was stitched up a little. Very lucky.
You know, American Abrams are far from being all the problems for Putin and his cronies. After all, in Russia, a whole series of eliminations of war criminals is successfully continuing. Igor Kirillov, the one who led the chemical forces of the Russian Federation on a scooter in the yard. Collaborator Evsukov led the Alenovskaya colony. We all remember what happened there. Valery Trankovsky personally gave orders to strike missiles at peaceful Ukrainians. All these, so to speak, people have already been eliminated. And there is a clear sense that this is far from the end. Details materials by Oksana Rodionova.
This video made all of Russia shudder. 6 in the morning, 2 people exit the building. Explosion, target achieved today. For the first time since the start of the war with Russia in Moscow, filled with police, the FSB and special forces, a 2-star general was masterfully eliminated.
Fantastic, yes.
There haven't been any such spectacular operations in the world recently.
Unless it's all high.
The high-ranking Igor Kirillov, a war criminal who led the chemical troops of the Russian Federation, was killed. He talked about combat mosquitoes and numerous biolabs in Asia and ordered the Russian army to use prohibited chemical weapons against our defenders on the front line. Officially, there have been nearly 5,000 recorded cases of the use of chemical munitions by
Give
the
me a
Russians.
cigarette.
They throw it with some kind of poison, then the person starts having epilepsy. Yes, they begin
The
to suffocate.
explosives were hidden in a scooter near the entrance of the operation and were controlled remotely via a camera in a rented car.
Ukrainian.
Ukrainian Special Service. It tries not to repeat past operations. That is, if it was done once, next time you shouldn't expect it. There will be something new.
Oh, well,
Sabakan
wow.
was nicknamed the Ukrainian pager, hinting at the intricate operation in Lebanon. Leading Western media actively discussed the elimination of the highest-ranking general by Ukrainian Special Services, emphasizing,
The Secret Fifth Directorate of the Counterintelligence of the Security Service of Ukraine and the main intelligence directorate. Ukrainian military intelligence operates on Russian territory. Both agencies have complex networks and experience within the country. About 15 operations by the main intelligence directorate's security services have been conducted in the Russian Federation to eliminate certain individuals.
This is Deputy Chief Designer of the KB Mars, Mikhail Shatsky. He was involved in the modernization of missiles. Last week, he was eliminated in the Moscow region. Collaborator Sergei Evsyukov to hedenina sedia hedovanie sedia ideti kuda semonislo for the head of the Yelenovka column, where Ukrainian prisoners were blown up 2 years ago. 2 weeks ago, he was already torn apart by an explosion in his own car. Valery Trakovsky is the chief of staff of the 41st Brigade of the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation. The cost is launching missiles at Ukrainian citizens.
I don't know.
Explosion of a car in occupied Crimea. Dmitry Galenkov is a pilot of a mobile heavy bomber. Criminal. The orderlies will lift him.
There is the hit.
Shugev in the summer of 22. His rockets killed 69 civilians on October 20th, 24. He died from a hammer blow in a web blown near Bryansk. This is the commander of the submarine Krasnodar, Stanislav Zhitsky, responsible for the strike on Venice on the 14th of July 2022, where 27 civilians died. In July 23, Stanislav Zhitsky had his last run in Krasnodar, so the war criminal was shot. The propagandist Vladlen Tatarsky was eliminated by his own gilded and mined bust at a performance in St. Petersburg on the 2nd of April 2023. A year ago in December in the Moscow region, 2 bullets caught up with Ilya Kiva. Officially, the Ukrainian special services have not claimed responsibility for any of the killings, but the sentences and executions have a
I
system.
will attend the classification.
There is a certain classification of people. For example, people who wear uniforms, people who do not wear uniforms, who are not in government service, Solovyov, Skabiva, the Popovs, Poechali, and up to the last war correspondent. Therefore, there is target number 2,
And
number
I
3.
will get
Tamala Simasa.
Faker.
These executions of war criminals do not change the operational situation on the battlefield, but the war strategies, and those who believe in impunity lose that confidence and desire to continue.
All right, and now the analysis of the situation on the Lyman front. Russian world continues to destroy, kill, and destabilize here as well. On the Lyman front, the enemy is attacking in the area of Chernishchina, Novoserhiyivka. Since the beginning of the day, there have been 18 clashes in this direction, 4 of which are still ongoing. And now about the hellish morning for Kherson. Due to massive Russian artillery shelling, 2 men were killed and 10 more people were injured. The enemy started striking all areas of the city at 5 in the morning. Apartment buildings, private houses, medical facilities, and power lines were damaged. 4 districts of Kherson are without electricity, as well as Bilozerka and Kamyshany. All the details in the report by TSN correspondent Svetlana Pavak.
The residential houses in the Shumansky district were hit by Russians with grads. The roof was pierced. Everything started burning here. A grad landed where we were. I was sitting in the corner, couldn't breathe or anything. We ran to the 5th floor under fire to put it out. But of course, But of course, there is no roof there. A public transport stop and civilian infrastructure have been destroyed. Traffic lights are not working everywhere in the city. Trolley buses have not set out on routes. The contact network is damaged. 4 neighborhoods are completely without power. There is no heating at all. Well, in short, they left us with nothing, liberated us.
Thoughtfully.
Behind me, you can see one of the consequences of the terrorist act by the Russian Federation that occurred this morning against the civilian population, targeting apartment buildings. Our guys and volunteers are already working there now.
The Russians were striking for an hour. It was flying everywhere, and it didn't stop. For about 20 minutes, it was exploding. Then silence, and then again. People are talking about the horrors of that morning while clearing the rubble in their destroyed apartments. They are still in shock.
A shell came right where we were. Right into the very, got stuck in the carpet, just went off. I started to go further. I thought, what did it have? I don't know. To grab onto. What a horror. For the first time in 3 years,
the neighboring
this just
apartment, they fell apart. Burned the wall along with the balcony. The exit from the top floor is just into the abyss, and this woman was miraculously saved. She fell out of bed at dawn. If she hadn't gotten up, she says, she wouldn't be alive.
God saved me. God saved me. I dream of a plane flying at me. And I think it's shooting, and at that moment I woke up, and I was just lucky.
Another woman also woke up in time. There is a hole in her apartment as well.
You see where it flew. If I had been lying on the bed, it would have caught me there.
In this 5-story building, the hail damaged the roof and even reached the 4th floor from above.
Punched through the 5th floor and flew into the 4th. There was a fire in my house, we put it out ourselves. In general, everything was loud and serious.
It started somewhere so close to the explosion. And then I already tell my husband, I say, let's go. And he is just in the bedroom near that window. I say, let's go faster. And when it hit, I thought that was it. Life is ending.
Utility workers are already working near the high-rise buildings, covering people's windows with plywood. About 100 more window panes need to be installed in hospitals. 2 medical facilities were hit by the occupiers, and a shell also hit the Maritime Academy building. There is also destruction there.
Well, let's move to the Seversk and Tourette's direction of the front. The situation here is traditionally tense to the limit. On the Sever direction today, the occupiers attacked 3 times in the Belogorovka area. Our defenders successfully repelled all attacks. On the Tourette's direction, the enemy attacked our troops' positions near Delievka and Touretsk 8 times.
2 de-escalations are still ongoing.
The continuation is underway.
Well, now about how the enemy terrorized the capital.
The face of an independent and sovereign Ukraine, Kiev. War criminals from Russia launched an entire swarm of missiles at Kiev. A 53-year-old man died from falling debris. 12 people sought medical help, 6 of them were hospitalized. The majority were diagnosed by medical professionals with multiple shrapnel wounds and bruises on their bodies. Around 7 in the morning, the terrorist country, the Russian Federation, attacked the capital with Kinzhals and Iskanders. All the details in the report by TSN journalists Ivan Vorobiev and Natalia Nagorna.
The main impact from the debris of the Russian missile hit the business center building. The roof and upper floors suffered the most.
From the 13th to the 15th floor there were structural damages. There was also a fire on the 14th to 15th floors. It has now been completely extinguished. Fortunately, there are no casualties. Rescuers are currently preparing for dismantling CA.
Debris also damaged the surrounding buildings. In a radius of at least 300 meters, there are almost no intact buildings left. Residential buildings, dining establishments, shops, a hotel, and government institutions are damaged. Everything nearby is littered with debris. And
broken glass.
The great damage.
Significant damage. This concerns the city's infrastructure, windows and building facades. They are shattered, but I can say that the consequences could have been much worse. Regarding the explosion's force, we have information about 1 fatality. 12 people sought medical assistance. 6 of them are currently hospitalized.
A gas pipe was also damaged by the debris. For several hours, rescuers were putting out the flames. Because of this, several nearby houses were left without gas. The heating network was also affected. More than 600 buildings were left without heating. Utility workers are doing everything possible to fix everything as quickly as possible. The greatest amount of destruction occurred in that place. Cars nearby were completely burned. One of them was simply thrown onto the fence of a neighboring building by the blast wave. It is known that at least 12 people were injured and one man died. His body still remains at the scene of the tragedy. Rescuers are working. The shockwave also damaged one of the capital's landmarks. The Church of St. Nicholas, designed by the famous architect Gorodetsky. The explosion shattered unique stained glass windows. At the time of the explosion, a service was being held in the lower church, and fortunately none of the parishioners in that church were injured.
Where did I get There was a regular mass that takes place every morning, but people were praying in a basement room, which is safe because even during alarms, children come there, and the room is used as a shelter.
Currently, headquarters for addressing the aftermath of the Russian attack are deployed here. Law enforcement agencies continue their work and document another crime by the Russians. Utility workers, together with residents of the affected area, are removing glass and debris.
That's all for today. It has been a very difficult military year of 2024, and it is very much hoped that the year 25 will be marked by a Ukrainian victory over Russian evil. Very soon on the Front News program, new unique materials from our journalists in the hottest war zones, acquired so that you know the truth. This was Vladimir Timoshenko with you. Happy upcoming holidays, and of course take care of yourself and your loved ones.